Hi, welcome to the Rainbow Connection podcast. I'm your host, Allison Hadley, and I've got a couple pretty special guests with me here today. We're going to be talking some pro wrestling and say their name, and they will appear. So we have with us today, we have Corina and Shanni.
Yes, hello.
And if you just want to introduce yourselves, tell us a bit about yourself if you like. And if you were a wrestler, what would your theoretical finishing move be?
I'll go first. So my name is Corina Dransutavicius. I am a Edmonton-based improviser, I guess would be the best title for me as an artist. I run, as the artistic director, SorryNotSorry Improv. We're a local not-for-profit improv company. Shanni is also a part of it. And that's how we know each other.
It's true.
And in terms of wrestling, if I were to have a finishing move, because I also am a blue belt right now in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I would have to go with the thing that I catch people with all the time in, which is a guillotine. So maybe like a real fun one where I lift them up and transfer it into like a pile driver-y type thing might be fun. But yeah, no name for it. People don't really finish things with guillotines.
Okay, well, as long as you have a name for it by the end of the show, we're good.
And my name is Shanni Pinkerton. My pronouns are she, her. I also work with Corina at SorryNotSorry. That's also how I got into wrestling. We do a wrestling format called the Prairie Improv Federation, which is very fun. I kind of am a more recent wrestling fan. I kind of came at it, I always say, like the side angle through drag. I'm also a drag performer. We do a drag king show as well, and I take a lot of inspiration from wrestling for that. And I guess my finishing move would be, I just want to be Tiffany Stratton at some point, so I kind of want to steal her prettiest moonsault. I just want to jump off the top rope. It looks amazing, and I'm too scared to do it.
Yeah, that looks like it would be a whole thing. I don't know. I'd be more ground-based, I think.
Fair. I want to be more aerial, but I will keep my feet firmly on the ground for now and likely ever.
All right, yeah. Well, just want to thank both of you for joining us here for our fatal three-way match, which can't be interpreted in another way using those words.
There is nothing with a double entendre or a homoerotic edge about wrestling. It's so important to note.
It's so important. It's very heterosexual, and there's no sexual connotations to anything, which is why a lot of us love wrestling so much. And also, we have our wonderful, prestigious, and legally distinct Rainbow Connection podcast wrestling belt here, which may or may not be awarded at the end if someone emerges victorious from this fatal three-way.
I was going to ask if it was a battle royale of a podcast, combat discussion.
It might be, especially the people listening just through audio would really appreciate that, I think. So, Shanni, you said you got in through drag. Like, I'm a drag performer myself, and so what brought you, like, what was it about wrestling that kind of drew you in terms of drag stuff?
So I don't even know if I kind of connected the two at first, but I was a big drag fan as well, and I've always kind of loved over-the-top costuming. I love camp, and I actually got into costuming myself as a cosplayer in 2020, pandemic hobby that's really taken off and taken over my whole life. And just a couple of my friends, Corina and a couple of other friends who were regularly watching wrestling, were like, Shanni, you've got to come see this. It's so camp. It is drag. It is drag. You're going to love it. And yeah, they brought me to a Royal Rumble a couple of years back. We all got together and made our bets based on nothing for me, but and I watched it and I was just kind of entranced by the soap opera of it all, how larger than life it was. And I was like, oh, it really is. This is like drag that they've like packaged nicely for straight men. to take with them, and it was fascinating. The costumes drew me in, the characters. It was just amazing to watch it with that athletic tilt also.
It's interesting. Yeah, the way I like to say it, just when I'm trying to convince other queer trans people to watch wrestling, I'm just like, well, it's just jacked up theater kids, right? Like there's the drama, there's the pageantry, there's all the storylines, and everyone is just trying to put on a great show and like capture the fans' attention in one way or the other, for good or for ill, right? And like and one thing I want to talk about is sort of like the queer influences or the queer behind the scenes stories that happen in wrestling. And like there's only amount of time you can have something that's basically theater before queer people start getting a voice and before queer people start being extra visible in it, right?
Yeah, it's funny that you say theater. So I bury the lead a little bit here. I did do a little bit of pro wrestling training as well a few years ago under Top Talent. You might be familiar with them.
Good local promotion.
Yeah, they're super fun. So I did a year and a half or so of that before I had injury-related problems that were not to do with the wrestling, if you can believe that. But one of the trainers that I had at the time had said that pro wrestling is opera for regular people, and in a lot of ways, I mean, opera is also drag.
Honestly, yeah. There's a lot more crossover than I think a lot of people get or want to admit as well, right? Like it's always, there's a separation as well. Like people who like opera might not acknowledge that there's a similarity, and same with people who like wrestling might not acknowledge there is, but there clearly is. One thing I want to talk about is Shanni, you just mentioned the Royal Rumble. Mm-hmm. I'm a big Royal Rumble fan myself. Corina, do you like the
WWE?
Yeah, the Royal Rumble.
Well, very specifically the Royal Rumble. I mean, everybody likes the Royal Rumble.
Yes.
It's the thing that gets people to start watching wrestling again after not watching since WrestleMania.
Exactly, because it's just a good chance that, especially now with the men's and women's Rumble, you get 60 different participants. So you get to see basically the entire roster. You know, they'll usually bring back a couple legacy people that maybe you are more familiar with if you haven't watched in 5 or 10 years. Like, oh, hey, they're going to trot out someone who hasn't been in a wrestling ring for a couple of years just to fill a space. But it's neat. It's nostalgic for everyone.
Returns.
Oh, yeah, after injuries that are long vacations.
Absolutely. So do either of you want to say basically what the format is for Royal Rumble, just for folks who don't know, and just so that you maybe sell it and see if, you know?
I mean, I love it because I do think it's also one of the most absurd premises for any kind of competition.
It truly is.
30 people. Each person released after, was it minute or 2 minutes?
Yeah, a kayfabe minute.
Kayfabe minute, yeah.
So kayfabe being the in-world of wrestling, the sort of shared reality created with the pro wrestling. And the minute may or may not be a minute, sort of depending on whether or not it calls for it in the story.
Exactly, but you'll get the countdown in the crowd. You'll hear the crowd chanting when the next person's about to come out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But good mentioning kayfabe. We'll cover probably a few terms later, but that's a key one that I figured would probably come up, and that's a good explanation of it. Like, just like there's people. There's actually that will be like kayfabe brothers or something, but they're not brothers in real life. Or they'll be like kayfabe relationships, and they're not really in a relationship. But it's it's for the bit, right? And we love it when people do things for the bit.
So. Absolutely.
And then, so one person entering every minute, air quotes for those not watching. And then it is the goal of everyone else who is currently in the ring to throw that person over the top rope. And then they have to have both feet, typically is the rule, touching the ground. So that would make them out.
And that's the only way you can get eliminated.
Yes.
Yeah, the only way. So any other kind of shenanigans or chicanery where you've climbed under the ropes or you've snuck away. And I love when people sneak out from under the ropes and hide under the ring. So you kind of forget they're still active in the Rumble. You just haven't seen them
and 20
for
minutes.
15 minutes. And then all of a sudden someone pops out from underneath the ring apron with a chair and you just didn't realize they were still there. It's excellent.
Or the creative ways to not get eliminated are pretty good as well. So you can have the technicalities where you're not actually touching the ground, or you're almost touching the ground, or you step on someone's head instead, so you're not out.
Yeah, or your buddy puts you on their shoulders.
Or there's a plate of pancakes.
Yeah,
or...
I personally live for the exchanges when they've both gone over the top rope and they're both on the apron and just going back and forth. And you're like, back and forth.
One of the things I really like is I find in the Royal Rumble, that's where you can tell kind of which wrestlers are the best at improvising and thinking on their feet as well. Just because when you have that many people in the ring, things go wrong and people get eliminated there before they're supposed to, or someone gets hurt and you have to adapt. And there's sometimes where they just look at each other and like, oh crap, that person wasn't supposed to be eliminated yet. And then some people just like kind of wander around and they're like, what do I do? And there's other people that just figure it out, right? Like it's like, so it's a nice way to, I don't know, as a viewer who knows this, is to just like look and see what people are doing and like.
Yeah, and how people check in with each other. It's sort of a term that I've heard kicked around before is ring awareness or mat awareness. And it is important when you're sharing the space like with one other person or like if you're doing a tag team match, 3 other people. But if you're in a space with upwards of 30 other people, if everybody manages to stay in the entire time until the 30th person comes in, you
which honestly even 12 people in a ring is just simply too many. They're very big people, a lot of them.
There's a lot. I also find that like a lot of the rumbles that are particularly funny for me, watching people try to improvise who aren't necessarily as familiar with not looking at what's happening, because they have to look out of their corner of their eye while they're being punched in the corner. Oh, my cue. Good. And then they look up and they see what's happening. So I think it is a great way to sort of judge the reliability of workers, other than the other ways you can judge them by they're always being booked over and over and over again to put other people over.
Exactly. So I just noticed like
3 terms. I think it's 3 terms. Yeah.
Okay. So I was going to like, do we do a separate section? I'm like, that's a great way to segue into a section about terms. But
can't talk much longer without diving into them.
No,
okay,
it's fair.
Exactly.
Fair.
It's unavoidable, and I want to make this so if people are watching and they don't really follow wrestling and they're maybe interested, maybe we're selling it to them, that it's a little more approachable if you try watching like a YouTuber who talks about it and you're like want to know what they're saying, because a couple of those sentences might be gibberish to anyone else. So okay, so what do you mean by a worker?
So one of the wrestlers, typically, you could probably count valets, so like people who are coming in with the wrestlers that are sort of support posse, or managers. You can probably also count them as workers. So managers being the people who, in kayfabe, now that we all know what that means, manage the wrestlers. So they are booking them and deciding how much they are getting paid or what matches they're taking, and oftentimes speaking for them if they're not necessarily super on it with the mic. But that would be how I would define workers.
Yeah, and like a good worker would be someone who is, good to work with and, makes things look believable in the ring and doesn't hurt their partner.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's...
I swear I won't just be like, when I was training for a year and a half. But when I was training for a year and a half, one of the things that, again, one of my trainers sort of pointed out is when you're shaking hands with everybody, because you say hello to everybody when you're arriving, and it's a soft touch with the handshake, right? Not like oftentimes, especially as women, we get told that do a firm handshake so people know that you mean business, because otherwise they'll think you're weak. But the soft handshake is like, I'm going to take care of you, you're going to take care of me. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not like a stiff worker. I'm sorry, I'm throwing more terms in there for you.
No, this is good. Like we're talking terms right now, so. People might have figured out what a stiff worker.
Yeah, so somebody who is wrestling, I would say, without regard to their partner's safety. I think that's probably the best way to put it, because to say that somebody is a stiff wrestler when they do like actual chops that are tough, that doesn't necessarily mean I wouldn't call them a stiff worker. I would say that would be true if they hadn't gone over the like degree of chest slaps, essentially. We're talking about chops. if they hadn't gone over that with their partner, right, in the ring, the person they're squaring off with. That, I would say, would be a stiff worker or somebody who's using actual, I'll do another one if you let me keep talking, shoot wrestling.
Okay. So I'll just contribute a bit to that, then we'll go into like a shoot versus a work, I think is a good way to do it. So with someone who works stiff, there's typically a reputation of like injuring their fellow workers and stuff like that, and people might not want to work with them. There's a couple historical examples of people that were not beloved in the dressing room for that reason. But when it comes to, a work versus a shoot, Shanni, do you know this, or do you want to take this?
I actually don't. I am so new to this. I like listening to Corina because I'm like, oh, you know what? I think I can be the layperson who kind of manages what these terms might look like to someone who is not actively in the ring. Yeah.
Okay.
Go on for shoot. I don't know this one in particular, but I know some of the other ones we've said.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll take that one then. So basically, a shoot is when something is actually real. It's if another term is a receipt. If someone does a stiff move on you and actually hurts you, or you weren't ready for it and it throws you off, then you might give them a receipt, which is intentionally doing the same thing back to them. And it works in the same thing when you're cutting a promo. Like a shoot is if I'm like, I am really upset with you, and you're actually really upset with that person. Whereas a work would be if it's in kayfabe and, oh, I hate you so much because you did these terrible things, but they're not actually things that happen. So it's if it's sort of in universe or if it's a real life thing is kind of, I'd say, the difference between like a shoot and a work.
Yeah, and some of the funnest things, at least in my opinion, and I would put a lot of this down to what the Young Bucks have done with AEW in terms of meta kayfabe, where we know that this is not real, and so when we behave as though it's not real, are we acknowledging it here? Is this exchange happening on Twitter a part of kayfabe, or is it not a part of kayfabe? And some of the backstage things that you hear about, especially with all of the pro wrestling reporters online who are just here gobbling up as much information as they can grab at anything. That additional level of like meta knowledge is also very fun.
It's so wild when the two things actually get kind of blended together. Like I was actually just on social media just before here, and like Karrion Kross, who got released by WWE, someone asked him, hey, have you thought about going over to AEW? And for people who don't know, those are the two biggest wrestling promotions, and people go back and forth fairly often. And Karrion was like, I don't know, like I talked to AEW and they think this is a work, so they're not hiring me right now. But I assure you it's not. and so it's like,
I mean, WWE did just pull that with R-Truth like not that long ago. So
absolutely. So it's kind of fun when it gets blurred. Like, obviously not for Karrion Kross because he probably wants to be working right now.
Have a job at least, yeah.
Like either I want a kayfabe resolution or I want someone to say that this isn't a work, and I have in fact been released from my contract.
That's hard. And I know a lot of organizations have played that to their advantage over the years. I think actually leading up to last WrestleMania, WWE had a lot of fun with that, with The Rock coming back after a long time being gone, and there was kind of the uncomfortable, he is on the board of directors with the company now, but also he's back in the ring and he's controlling things. How much does he control? How much doesn't he? It's fun to watch, and it's fun to watch. I enjoy watching other people break it down with analysis also, just like how into it are you going to get?
Yeah. So, before we go into other topics, let's try and wrap up some more terms here, right? So I'll say like kind of some of the base ones would be like a heel and a face.
Yeah.
And so basically like a heel is the bad guy or the bad girl, and the face is the good one, right? So that's just generally, so like if someone does a heel turn, that means, we thought they were a nice person, and then they're not. They're going to do something terrible. What are some other key terms that you think would be important for folks to know?
I see you'd mentioned putting people over, which the first time I'd heard it, I assumed it literally meant over the ropes because I was watching Royal Rumble. But no, putting someone over is
it's a different putting people over.
Yes, yeah, and it's ensuring that they're making them more popular with the crowd, with the fans. The audience has bought into them. If you're over with the fans, it's like they want to see you. The storyline can be trying to kind of cast you as a heel, but if they love you enough, the creative team will often have to kind of pivot the direction of the story because you're so over with the fans. You're just so popular.
Yeah, and like if you're over in a negative way, that's heat. And so it's like
and there's different types of heat as well, right? People will describe go away heat as you're really annoying and I don't want to hear you anymore. Like Vicky Guerrero was often dubbed as having has fallen much more into favor nowadays, but had go away heat. Excuse me, right? So
great impression, by the way. Yeah, and any other terms we can think of that might crop up here?
I mean, heat can also refer to one of the stages of a wrestling match. So, like a classic wrestling match can kind of be broken up into stages. You start with the shine, where you're showing off that the babyface is a better wrestler overall than the heel. Now, that is not as true nowadays. There tends to be, I find, a little bit more back and forth during the shine.
That is a very sort of older school traditional way.
But a good way to otherwise sort of put it would be making sure that the audience gets what each wrestler is about. Like, what is their thing? Are you an undead girl from beyond the grave, Abaddon? Or are you...
Who's incredible?
Yeah, absolutely. Or are you, just like real clean-cut Layla Hirsch, right? All-American kind of wrestler. So what is the deal for the people who are in the ring? And after the shine ends, typically there is some sort of cutoff, which will end how much success the baby face is having, and then you'll head into the heat, which is often during the commercial break, because it is oftentimes just beating up the baby face so that the audience is like, oh no, the baby face, they're gonna lose. It's so awful, terrible.
But I really like her. Bye.
Yeah. And they're in so much pain. The most recent heel turn with John Cena, I kept saying while watching at WrestleMania, he needs to be meaner. He needs to be so much meaner because people love him too much. So he's got to be like cruel in that ring for the audience to stop. I mean, it was a Las Vegas audience, which is, in my opinion, one of the most difficult wrestling audiences. Just by the nature of the entertainment industry in Las Vegas. But anyways, so that's the heat. Typically then the babyface will stage a series of like comebacks or hot comebacks where they're trying to get back and they're rallying the crowd. They're in a headlock and they're stomping their foot on the mat to get the audience to motivate them. The reason that they succeed now is not necessarily because they're better wrestlers, but because they're motivated by the energy of the audience and whatever that they need to gather there. And then you've got your sort of like false finishes, exchanges happening where 1, 2, 2, where they're counting back and forth and exchanging. And then you end it with your finishers. The thing that ends the match signature oftentimes. Yeah.
I mean, that covers it as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, yeah.
I am a wrestling fan on vibes 90% of the time.
Yeah.
I do joke often too that it's like I brought a friend to one of our just like wrestling watch parties, and she was we're putting our bets in for like candy bets, and she told me afterwards, she goes, well, I'm just betting based on who I think has the nicest butt, and that guy's butt was too flat, so I don't think he should win. I was like, great, thank you. All right.
That's a legitimate
Whatever it is
process,
for you.
though.
Exactly, yeah.
Other terms that I would say would be useful is marks or a smart mark.
Yes, there's a couple I was thinking, but if you want to go into those?
Sure. So a mark is a carnival worker term, a carny term, saying that you are a target for being manipulated, essentially. It is not really used in the same context anymore. It's kind of the audience, the fans, the people who are buying into your show, which is why a smart mark will be the person who is more, they know a little bit more about wrestling, I am that person who's sitting there and watching the match and being like, oh, yeah, all right, so the commercial break's about to hit. And I know that I don't necessarily have to keep watching because by the time I come back, the babyface will be sufficiently beaten down and my washroom break won't have been interrupted. So that's how I would sort of
Exactly. And like a mark in terms of a wrestler can be a mark as well, though, right? So what would that look like if a wrestler is deemed to be a mark?
Do you have an example?
I do actually. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I'll take that one then. So
I have
the. Oh.
I thought I was just thinking. I was like, I feel like the recent the turn with Dominic Mysterio a couple years ago in the WWE, from a child who literally was on TV on and
Grew
off
up on
since
camera,
actual like childhood, was kind of targeted by the I keep wanting to say the Bloodlines. I'm just thinking about Roman Reigns. Nope, targeted by the Judgment Day to kind of turn heel with them, to kind of come over to the dark side, as it were, with them and fight against his father and these face wrestlers. And he was a fun mark because he was kind of gullible and goofy and didn't really seem very good at the gig in general. He was booed a lot by the fans, but I mean, they actually almost wound up, I'd say, putting him over in some ways because he got hated so much once he, turned heel with them and was taken, that he kind of became such a joy to watch because he was such a slimy little weasel.
And especially
it was just so fun.
His father's so beloved too, right? So it's like, how could you go against your dad? We love your dad so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way I've heard sort of a wrestler being a mark is, for me, just mark is synonymous with chump in general. Like, if a wrestler is not valuing themselves, and they could be getting a bigger contract, but but I've got the Intercontinental Championship, so I'm happy where I am, and that kind of holds back other wrestlers that are trying to do contract negotiations and stuff. So sort of and not being like a team player in that way, like back in the 80s when Jesse Ventura tried to form a wrestlers union, and there was a few wrestlers that. Most notably Hulk Hogan, who did not want that to happen, so ratted them out and made sure that they couldn't form the union. So at that point, Hulk Hogan was the biggest mark in the dressing room.
Yeah. And it's sort of tagging on to the idea of somebody doing what's best for business and not necessarily best for themselves.
It's not even themselves, but also just everyone.
Well, yeah. But I mean, I would say that trying to convince people to do good for everybody is a lot harder to do than just do good for yourself.
Yeah, but it's like you could be getting a bigger payday. Why aren't you, sort of thing? Yeah. Cool. So one thing I just wanted to bring back and start talking about actual queer stuff in wrestling as well. Like, I think we have a good basis here. But one thing I think is really interesting is we all love the Royal Rumble, and the Royal Rumble was actually the brainchild of Pat Patterson, who was a very notable figure both when he was wrestling and then as an executive with WWE. Came up with a lot of great ideas, including the Royal Rumble. And he had a close friend that toured with him and was everywhere with him for 40 years. And when he was wrestling, his friend would be there. And then after the show, his friend would be there. And all these things that he was able to come out actually fairly recently because of, there's all kinds of instances of people that when they find out that they are gay or queer in some way, that's kind of the end for them. Because a lot of times in wrestling, being somewhat, most of history in the spotlight, it's been the men. But so if there's a man who's kind of like effeminate and their character is effeminate, then they're almost instantly a heel. Because it challenges the masculinity and the norms, right? And so if you were like effeminate or gay off of camera, then you just didn't work at all. So you had all these very cisgender straight men like playing characters of gay people. And so of course there were some problems with that as well, to say the least.
Definitely, there's a long history throughout wrestling of kind of using other people's identity as a character and as a gimmick, which thankfully flies a lot less nowadays. And back in the 90s and pre-90s especially, though, it was pretty ugly for a lot of folks who, like you said, weren't cis white dudes.
Yeah, because there's even a lot of like racial ones as well, and they'd be people, playing different cultures or ethnicities, for the bit. And of course, they're always heels as well, right? Like it's...
Yeah, no, there's definitely a darker side of wrestling history, and I think something that I think was we mentioned earlier was when you talked about the workers, not just the actual wrestlers themselves, but their managers, their valets, and I think it was kind of the way that Pat Patterson was able to bring his friend, his partner with him as they cast him in the show. He was his valet, so there was no why is he on the road with you always? It's he's part of the act, which is it's sad, to have to live in plain sight and be hidden, but I'm glad to hear that they got to be together as long as they did, and as semi-publicly as they were. Because when I was watching a recent documentary, it was kind of an open secret. Everyone knew Pat was gay, but it was just we can't talk about it. When he did come out on the what was the show? It was their
Legends House.
Legends House, yeah, one of their reality shows. I watched another documentary and they said everyone knew it was at the table, but it was still a really powerful moment for him to be able to say it out loud, publicly, and share that kind of not kayfabe part of himself, that actual true instance that should not have had to be hidden for so long.
Well, and even a lot of the people around that table probably knew, which is probably why it felt safe for him to do so. But then also to all the viewing audience and just to actually put it out there. And that must have just been such a freeing moment. And of course, after that, the people picked at that, but that's a whole other thing. He came out wonderful. Go, Pat, go.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And then everything was wonderful.
Yeah, and then the story stops there. Beautiful, happy ending, yes.
Oh,
not so much, but.
But that's where it's kind of fun that with, especially in the last few years, there's been more queer representation in wrestling, which has been really nice. I'll say it's got especially more prevalent with the rise of AEW, or All Elite Wrestling. Is there is a wrestler called Anthony Bowens, and he is an out gay man, and he said that he was approached by WWE, but he saw AEW and he saw that they had trans wrestlers and they had queer wrestlers that were out, and they were not hiding, and it could even be part of their storylines if they wanted to be. If they didn't want to be, it didn't have to be. And they're no, Anthony was just saying I can work here and I can be myself. Whereas WWE is kind of very much the old guard, right? It's the established way. This is the way we do things. And now, especially when you get people being affiliated with the current U.S. government and having deals with Saudi Arabia and stuff like that, it's hard to imagine there being positive queer storylines in WWE. If they are, they're very subtle, or they're very kind of male gaze oriented. Hey, we're gonna have a couple girls make out, but that's not actually who they are or what this is about. It's not about these two women. It's about, hey, that's pretty cool. Hey.
I often joke, I say that they are at least catering to the sapphic gaze with Rhea Ripley. Whenever people are often shocked when I say that I'm a wrestling fan. People look at me, they're like, what, you? I said it in front of, I just got my teaching degree a couple of years ago, and that was my first year really getting into it. And one Monday I said, happy WrestleMania to those who celebrate. And my mentor teacher was like, what did you just say? And the whole class was like, huh? But it was cool. It got me clout with some of the kids who I might not have been able to connect with. But it was when I tell a bunch of my friends, they're like, why are you such a wrestling fan? I was like, well, Rhea Ripley. And they go, yes, of course. But of course, do what you must. I'm like, yes, thank you.
Every moment is a photo with her.
Yes, yeah. I like watching all my favorite online celebrities too. Snitchery, all these different cosplayers and Instagrammers also go as bananas for Rhea Ripley at the events, as I would from home. It's nice.
Yeah. and that's where Rhea gives us some nuggets where she can.
It's the nuggets, especially with the, like you said, the more mainstream kind of old guard. It's always nuggets that aren't rooted in reality. She's married to a man. I have no idea what her sexuality is.
Yeah.
But
she knows what she's doing.
Oh, she certainly does. And I mean, at least it's played, in my mind, I'm like, at the very least, it's played favorably. It's not it's not a heel angle. It's not a villainous angle that she's attractive to women. It's played up.
It's played favorably, and for me, I think the key difference is it seems like it is her creative decision to just do these little flourishes as she goes to the ring or whatnot, and do these little poses, whereas in the past it felt very directed. And so I think that's a key difference there.
Hugely, definitely, I'd say, yeah. No, I mean, we have our drag king characters. We also both have wrestling characters. You for the ring, and both of us for the stage. And yeah, it's when you're the one saying, I'm going to play this incredibly camp character, I'm going to play it up, it's empowering. Whereas when it's coming down from the white dude in the driver's seat of the organization, I can't imagine that would feel good for anyone, let alone
No.
like the wrestler. The viewers can see it too, but the person themselves, that can't be good.
Okay, so I think the camp aspect of wrestling. So explain like what draws you in, or what do you think is the coolest camp aspect that you like, or what just really gets you, would you say?
I mean, for me, it really is. I come at this from a costumer's angle, and it's the ring gear. I am fascinated, and I'm just obsessed with the ring gear because it really harkens to me, to like burlesque and drag, which I love both art forms so much. And so getting to see that, especially like my personal favorite wrestler in WWE right now is Seth freaking Rollins, and getting to see this like, and he was very over, this very like masculine long beard, the oiled back hair, but he would come out in these like incredibly ornate robes, very like, I guess Ric Flair was kind of the same, and I mean even Macho Man Randy Savage to an extent. I feel I see people cosplaying him, and I'm drawn to the color and the vibrancy, the over the top. But I really enjoyed seeing Seth kind of come out being a little more flamboyant. Again, a straight man. His wife is also in the company, but getting to see him kind of take on this camp aspect and like still be seen as like so masculine and so
He's wearing like
powerful.
these big fluffy jackets.
Yeah!
They're always incredible outfits.
Yeah. And like like the viral red boots, the huge like Mickey Mouse boots. Like he wore those. I follow his stylist on Instagram as well, and I just love seeing kind of the intersection of fashion and wrestling. I enjoy that. Anytime we kind of take things out of their box where. And I mean, wrestling has always been like that, but when you get to take that kind of camp aspect out of where you would expect to see it and kind of share it with the world, it's just such a beautiful thing. I really enjoy it.
And do you think him like sort of embracing that campy aspect has kind of like helped his popularity or hindered it, or do you think it's had any effect on that?
I mean, it helped with me. I saw a great snippet once. It was just someone on TikTok, and it was a wrestling podcast. These two guys being like, I don't get Seth's whole thing with the jackets, and the cutting was just this girl on TikTok being like, it isn't for you, and if you don't get it, maybe it's not about you. And I felt very seen in that.
Oh man, so much to say about that. I will try to put a pin in my own thing about camp, but it's not for you. There's so many different types of wrestling. And AEW versus WWE are two like good examples of like there is such a breadth of different things. There's like Joshi style wrestling, so like female Japanese wrestling. You've got a lucha libre style wrestling with lots of like flips, and typically it's from Mexico, but you've also got like extreme no holds barred blood kinds of wrestling, and I think that it's funny to me that there are a lot of wrestling fans who will look at, let's say, a fork being driven into the ear of somebody in a wrestling match and say, that's not for me, I don't like this, which is fine and fair, but they won't be like, oh, no one should, I mean, there are some people who do that, but they're not like, no one should get to shove forks in each other's ears. That's just not my type of wrestling, and that's okay. But then when it comes to like queer representation, then you can't have that because I don't like it. Well, that part's maybe not for you.
And the thing is, the people who have had media catered to them for so long have a hard time realizing that they're not the target demographic for everything.
Yeah,
And
very tricky.
Because like for years, like when it was a little more hidden, and I've talked about this on other episodes, is that we get media that's not necessarily made by queer creators, but we look for little nuggets that we can latch onto. And now that they're not just things we can latch onto, they're a little more out in the open. And even if like the characters aren't explicitly queer, it's like they have those camp aspects, and it's and we can like that.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, like if you don't, then okay, they're not your guy, and that's fine. Like there's so many people on the roster, not everyone has to be your guy.
Yeah, I often joke about that. I say that I tune out for half the men's matches because it's like, what's the fun of me just watching two oily boys in shorts? That's just shorts. I don't care about your shorts.
Yeah.
Show me the pageantry.
Yeah.
As I've gotten kind of more acquainted with wrestling, also I do find it's like as you learn more, I also just the athletic performance of it, getting to kind of see
freaks. They're all freaks
Wild,
of nature.
wild, yes.
Just crazy feats of athleticism, but making it look like you're fighting, but not actually hurting your partner too much. Like, you know,
I mean, as much as you can, considering gravity will always exist.
they're still going to be, you know, things are still going to hurt, but you try and soften the blow as best you can, right? Like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to sort of keep going on the camp aspect, right? So talking about the costumes is absolutely, like, I think a big part of the camp of drag and also pro wrestling. But camp also, I literally just watched my brother in Farce last night. I wouldn't necessarily recommend the particular farce in question, but he was great in it. And farce is all about, like, reoccurring bits and kind of like cheekiness to the audience. You're involving the audience. You know what's going on. And pro wrestling is very much that as well. You hear the start of the song and the audience immediately starts singing, "You can't see me," right? The audience chants along with you. It's British pantomime, which also involves drag.
Yes, yes. It's even just the oversized expressions. Of course, you're playing to an arena crowd, but I love getting to watch arena crowd-sized expressions and acting on your small TV screen. You know, they kicked out before the count. Oh, I can't believe it. I'm just like, yes,
two,
take
only
this
two.
up. Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about, ref.
Yeah, it's the pageantry and the build-up that, like, ideally kind of turns us into marks for the match, right? It's just whether you believe the hype afterwards. I think is kind of a good differentiator there, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, Corina actually took me to my first like live wrestling show. We went to a top talent show here in the city, and I gotta say, if you're a wrestling curious, as I once was, I say, like you said, don't just look to what you see as the old guard, because like you said, there's so much out there. When we went, we actually got to see Effie, who's like a very like active out gay wrestler, perform. And because I was pretty new to wrestling, I kind of immediately had that like tense moment of like, oh, is this like a queer character being played? And Corina was like, no, this. And I was like, amazing.
No, we're allowed to like Effie.
We're here.
Effie is for us.
Yeah. By us and for us as we need. Grassroots queer wrestling. Yeah, no, and it was just so fun to get to kind of go in. And yeah, you know, I had a lot of friends being like, well, you know it's not real. And I'm like, well, you know a movie's not real, right? You're still going to watch it and enjoy it. If you can give it the buy-in. And like, I love to let myself become even more of a mark than I already am.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I'm going to yell, boo, no, I can't stand this. It's so fun to let yourself go and become part of the performance with it, which is, I think, a really nice aspect of wrestling.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like, the people are like, oh, it's fake. It's like, have you read a fiction book? Like, you know, that didn't actually happen. It was scripted, but...
Yeah. And that's my comment about Las Vegas audiences. The audience can make or break a show. If the audience is not willing to buy into what's happening on the stage, and this is something that's being filmed, or even if you're in the audience, it can really sour the mood for just everything that you're watching. They are the other wrestler in the ring in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's the crowd can really make a huge difference. Like, I remember watching, like, I think it was the first time that WWE went to Saudi Arabia. And we won't get too much into that, but just like, so obviously the tickets were very expensive and it attracted a certain class. And they seemed more interested in like doing business deals in the rows, and they were just chatting through the whole thing. And there wasn't that electricity. Everyone was just kind of like sitting there quietly, and they were there to kind of be seen. Like, oh, look, I'm at this prestigious event, and but like the sound wasn't there, and the vibe was not there.
Yeah. One of the things that I've really appreciated, so the last few times the WWE and AEW have come to Edmonton, and I've gone to see the shows, one of the things that I've really appreciated off the hop before filming or anything starts is either they've had their ring announcer come out, or they'll have something like broadcast up on one of the big jumbo screens, really saying, hey, if anybody in the audience decides that they want to start yelling out like homophobic slurs or racial slurs or being disrespectful or antagonistic, you know, flag down a security guard, that's not welcome here. I find two indie promotions, I've locally Top Talent and Love Pro Wrestling, also have us start off with hey, everyone, this is for everyone. So boo the bad guys, absolutely. But don't, like, boo the bad guys while calling them...
Yeah, like there's been historical times where they've been... Yeah, there's been the queer characters and people have literally, like, chanted slurs where you have the whole audience chanting slurs.
Ooh.
And...
It's Anthony Bowens, again, sort of one of the funniest things in the past.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
I love this so much.
Harley Cameron was hitting Harley Cameron, another wrestler from AEW, trying to get in the good books of Anthony Bowens, who was and at one point I think Max Caster, I think it was Max Caster who said, "Hey, don't you know he's gay?" And, like, instead of the audience being like boo or, like, freaking out, they were like, "Yeah, gay."
They're like, he's gay, he's gay, he's gay,
right? And that's just such a funny juxtaposition, especially watching out in the ring and seeing and hearing the audience yelling, you know, over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It's so different compared to hearing this, like, contemporary example of something that, I mean, there are plenty of people who would chant that negatively, but the audience was happy.
No, you could tell, you could feel the mood, you could feel the vibe when they were chanting that, which I absolutely loved. Which honestly, part of when I was growing up, I grew up with wrestling, and I was closeted for a very long time, and part of that was some of the only representation I had were the caricatures of queer people that were presented in wrestling, and so you get someone like Goldust, and they would always get jeered, and the announcers would always talk about how depraved he is and all these things, and it's like, and at the time, like, I didn't know I was trans. I knew something was different with me, but I'm like, people understand what gay people are, and this is how they treat a gay person. I don't know what I am. How's it going to be for me if I try to live my life? And there's things like that, and you see even things like people that weren't queer coded, but they were there to sort of play on masculinity, like people like I don't know. I think I'm probably significantly the oldest person here, so like Ravishing Rick Rude.
Okay, yeah, I'm not as familiar with
which
him.
He was in the 80s. He was very fit, and his whole thing is he would gyrate, and he was going to steal your woman and all this stuff. And so he had a feud with Macho Man Randy Savage, and he had a pair of tights where he had Macho Man's wife and valet, Miss Elizabeth, printed on the crotch of his tights. So he would like go like, when Macho Man was on the ground, he'd like gyrate over top, and it'd be his wife on Rick Rude's shorts and stuff like that. But that's the whole thing, is like he wasn't portrayed as like he was kind of like this guy's going to turn you into a cuck. Like, but it was still like a masculinity play and stuff like that. So it's just very much like anything that challenges the masculinity norm is going to be something that is booed and jeered. And like Rick Rude was thankfully like an excellent heel as well. So he was a great worker in the ring. So he got some really prestigious spots and stuff like that. But he was playing into that as well. And then I'm like, okay, so differing from the norm is not an acceptable thing. And then Goldust came in, and then Billy and Chuck and blah blah blah, and not a great time for representation. But when you're talking about like the he's gay chants and stuff like that, another cool thing is that as queer people have like come into their power in this, and we've been able to, say like we're just jacked up theater kids, and it's going to get a little gay now. It's a powerful thing. And so like when it comes to indie promotions, when you're talking about like the prefaces ahead of time, and just be respectful, and there's some really cool stuff happening in the indies, like down in the States in Oakland, there's Hood Slam Wrestling. And the head of that, who is also an active wrestler, is a woman named Dark Sheik, who is incredible and follows the podcast. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy this episode. And in the documentary we're talking about, Out in the Ring, there's this clip of her, like, she just finished the match, and then she gets on the microphone, and then she says, I've been on HRT, or hormone replacement therapy, for 12 weeks. And the crowd erupts in applause.
Yeah, I burst into tears.
I had to pause it, and I had to cry, because like I am so used to, especially in the climate nowadays, as trans people getting persecuted for almost nothing, and a lot of times actually nothing. And to hear a wrestling audience, which through decades has conditioned be like, this isn't a place for me to exist, and has only started to get good for people like me. Like, I don't feel safe going to a live event for like a WWE. I'm like, I'll hear about it, but I don't know if I want to go. But to hear a wrestling crowd cheer for hormone replacement therapy was just such a powerful thing. And it's just, you know, we have to carve our own space sometimes, and it's just really magical when that does happen. So it is there, and it's starting to filter upwards, which is really, really nice to see.
I don't wonder if the Dark Ages in the 2010s, late 2010s, has anything to do with the shift we've seen in wrestling audiences. Because I think there has been a shift in terms of who's coming out to see shows, its general sort of acceptability in the world. And I think some of that is who stuck through the some really, really, truly, heinously not good storylines, some not so great, just like in-ring action.
When the talent wasn't great, the booking wasn't great, the storylines weren't great.
Yeah. It was, but there were people who kind of like ground their way through it, and that might be a mark of like the queer people who enjoyed it and they clung on hard. And I'm not saying no one's done it, and maybe there's research on it, but I do think that the coincidence of the increase in pro wrestling and its general zeitgeist within pop culture now can't just be pointed to AEW as they are the only people, because they came in, but there was a thirst, there was a hunger, people wanted it.
Yes.
So people were unhappy with what was going on, but
well, those people came from the indies and stuff anyways, right? Like they came from somewhere.
Yeah. So I it'd just be interesting to hear about the people who stuck it out for those kind of years between the Shield and after the Shield.
And to be fair, I dipped out for a bit as well. And like, I'd been following since, you know, I was much smaller. And but yeah, I did dip out for a few years. I'm just like, this is kind of rough, and I don't really want to be here. But then I realized that the pageantry and like kind of the overt queerness, even if no one's saying it, was pretty cool and appealed to me. And I think that is an interesting way, is people who stuck through or people who discovered it afterwards, because a lot of people, like, there's basically the only wrestling groups I'm in online are memes and stuff like that, because there's some amazing wrestling meme makers out there. And but there's a common thing, and these groups make fun of kind of like the old guard fans, like, oh, everything has been crap since the Attitude Era ended. and those people that just have to criticize everything that's come out since then. Yeah. And for those who don't know, the Attitude Era was like just everything was really edgy and everything was over the top and everything was like there's all these outrageous storylines. Like you take reality TV and you dial it up to 26, and that was the Attitude Era, and people think, oh, that was the golden age, that was so great, that was the best stuff. And then they've kind of bailed after that, and they just criticize anything that's coming in. But there's all the people who's come in since then, and I think they might be, I think you're right, I think those might be the people that are just generally more accepting and receptive, is those people are just going to sit at home and grumble about how WrestleMania was when they were younger.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like, and like talking about fandom, you see that across a lot of fandoms where it's like, especially like queer folks, it's like we were here the whole time, and now we're seeing like, as time is moving forward, more explicit representation of ourselves. And yeah, this old guard of fans is like, what? But this isn't exactly what it was. You see it with Star Wars. You do see it with Star Trek wildly, which is wild to me.
When did Star Trek get woke?
Yeah, it's like literally the whole time since the beginning. Yeah. It's like, sure, I think we can say wrestling is, it's not getting woke. It's going in the direction of having actual human beings represented there. And I think that allows a lot more people kind of that in. I know it allowed me in, because at first, of course, I was like, I don't want to come sit and watch, you know, women be paraded around like the diva Barbie dolls that they used to be. It's like, no, I want to see people like doing their job and telling stories. And I think I've introduced people who, similarly, were like, I don't think I'm welcome in that space. And it's like, well, come at it through this lens with, these people or my friends. And so getting to be on a queer podcast talking about wrestling is I think super exciting, because it shows that, once again, we are always here. We're always everywhere. It's just, are we going to be able to be safe being loud and out and open with our enjoyment of these things or not? And I hope, like you said, I feel safer at shows now. I feel good going to local events, and it's a fun time.
We're pampered in Edmonton, though. Honestly, our indie scene is top notch.
Yeah, I'll go to an indie show just fine, but it's like I tend to avoid places where there's a lot of like drunk hetero men.
So fair.
And like,
I mean, my experiences at the last few Rogers Arena shows, I didn't go to the TNA shows that were just done on the end of September here, but they were generally good. The worst audience that I saw was actually the second AEW show, and that was purely down to, in my opinion, down to it being playoffs. There was a bunch of people in the audience who were there to tune into Oilers stuff later, and they were not engaged.
No. Edmonton is bad for that. I remember back on a previous playoff run, this is off topic, but it's my show. So like I was at a concert for The Cult, and like they had not been to Edmonton in like 15 years because they took some time off as a band, and they were doing nostalgia. They needed more money or whatever, but I'm like, hey, cool, I'll go see The Cult. It happened during playoffs. It was at the convention center. Oh. So like through most of the set, people were outside watching TV screens, and there's like a third of the people who paid for these tickets to see The Cult actually in the venue. And then Ian Asprey, the lead singer, is like, what the F is going on? He just started like, they started talking shit about hockey, which did not help his case. Edmonton is a different beast in the playoffs.
Yeah, just totally. That would be my. If you are a promoter and you're looking to book a show in Edmonton, avoid playoffs.
Avoid.
We are better the rest of the year, I swear.
We go to events. Yeah,
we're like real people most of the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's But regardless, like, support indie promotions and stuff. Like, there's some really great, very cool stuff going on there. And then it's also neat to see if you can see someone, it's not necessarily about rising up from the indies, but it's neat if you get to see someone, or you get to see someone who's just touring around, and you'll get people like Top Talent does a great job of bringing in people who are still like active on big rosters and stuff like that as well, right?
And if you listen to this podcast and you're like, wow, I want to do pro wrestling, you probably have somebody who does training nearby. Mm-hmm. One of the coolest experiences that I've had is that during my very short stint in terms of like overall training and learning.
Oh, you've done training?
Yeah. If you didn't know, but during that, I did get to train with somebody who's now down in the States wrestling with, I think they just got acquired by WWE. It's Booker T's promotion.
Oh,
Do you
cool.
remember the name?
I don't remember the name, but
it's going to come to me later.
I know that Booker T has a promotion.
Yeah, but
and now that you know someone who's with it.
Yeah, somebody who I dropped on me we like collided heads.
Nice.
It was awful.
Head injuries.
but she's like killing it down there, and it's amazing. Yeah.
Like, not literally, I hope.
No, but I mean, it is the States, so.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I'm so curious. What was your ring name?
I chose D. Vivicious, which is a play on my last name.
Nice.
That's a good one. That's cool.
Yeah.
I remember, I've never thought of a ring name. Like, it was hard enough coming up with my drag name and for like names for my D&D characters and stuff like that. But like, I remember one thing that was just so funny is when people use like their real name, but they're like, is that a real name? And like, I didn't realize once that I actually worked with one of Bret Hart's sons.
Yeah.
and he had appeared on TV, but I'm looking at like the work roster. I'm like, what kind of name is Blade Hart? And I'm like, what a ridiculous name. And then like he rolls up to the job site. I'm like, Is it weird to say that I had like an action figure of your dad? Maybe a little bit.
I feel like it must be strange to be like the child of a wrestling, just like the adjacent family member of like a wrestling superstar, because so much gets kind of crossed over.
And I mean, as a kid, it must be. They're doing a lot of more information research and stories and testimonials about kids who grew up as like social media kids, like where their families were bloggers essentially. I would be really interested to hear more about, especially the kids of pro wrestlers who don't go into the business for themselves.
Because there's a lot of second, third generation.
So much.
Because of that, they grow up with it.
But like one of the first pay-per-views that I watched getting back into wrestling with AEW was their Revolution, I want to say 2019. And there was a match with the Pentagon and Phoenix. And they, the Lucha Brothers versus the Young Bucks in a steel cage, and there was a spot with Penta's face being like smashed in with a Jordan that had a bunch of text stuffed on the bottom. It's a great match. I'm not making it sound good, but it was like, and it was an awesome spot.
Selling it to me.
But afterwards, Penta gets out of the cage in the ring, and he goes and picks up his daughter, and he's covered in blood. I'm like, what is going through this child's mind? Like, I'm sure they've had a conversation being like, don't worry, Daddy's fine, but also
relative term fine.
Yeah. So I'd be really interested to hear about that from the perspective of someone who went to watch their parent wrestle.
Your child to work day.
That would be super interesting. Yeah, like, and just when you're bringing up Penta, I think that's an interesting thing as well. Is that we have kind of our wrestling culture in like Canada, and there's like the American wrestling culture, and like, but in Mexico it's kind of a whole different beast. Just like Japan is different, and other places are different as well.
DDT is so gay, like, and not even like shy about being gay. A wrestling promotion out of Japan, and they've got some wild spots too, though.
Yes, like the thing that I like find most not most interesting, but one of the things I find very interesting about wrestling in Mexico is that there's kind of storylines and like characters will get passed down.
Yeah.
And there's characters that have been like, the character has existed for 40 years and there's been 5 different people to play him. And like one of those things is like Penta or Pentagon is one of them, and they have a classic rivalry with Octagon, and it's like, why do these shapes hate each other? Who cares? It's amazing. But like another thing that I find really cool with Mexico is the exoticos, which I think is really interesting. Is like, as we were talking earlier about, sort of effeminate men being immediately the heel, and boo, we hate this person because like, oh, he has a feather boa, or like he wears perfume, or oh my God, this the worst. But exoticos down in Mexico, they started basically as like a comedy act, but the thing is, as they became more popular, you get crowds like chanting for these exoticos to kiss the other wrestler, which I find is just wild. And like, as someone who grew up on like, American and Canadian wrestling, does not compute. Like, if someone was chanting for Goldust to kiss someone, would blow my mind.
One of the finishing sequences that Anthony Bones and Max Caster had with the scissor me, Daddy. A word, and essentially jumping off the top of the ropes and landing in a scissoring motion. Yeah. And the audience was
lost
it up.
It was great.
It was amazing. Yeah.
But the thing is, with exoticos, like, even back as early as the 90s, you'd have a couple that got to be really, really popular, like Cassandro, or like Pimpernella Escarlata, I believe is the name, but based off the Scarlet Pimpernel. And but like, they actually became very popular, and they actually became faces and kind of like national treasures, which was really cool to see, especially at that point in time where like the 90s in WWE was a very homophobic, very like hostile time for queer people. So it was interesting that just south of the border that they were getting cheered. And I thought that was really kind of special and interesting how it's different culturally, like, especially like, you don't necessarily assume that society is more tolerant down there, but for whatever reason the wrestling society is, because exoticos are more accepted for some reason. So one thing that I do really want to talk about, well, not a thing specifically, but a person that I think, without even talking to you about her before, I'm pretty sure we all love her. So I'm talking, of course, about timeless Toni Storm, who is an icon and like is not shy about anything, especially when it comes to her promos and even her in-ring style and stuff like that. So without me leading too much, who wants to talk about the timeless one first?
Yeah. So, I mean, she's gorgeous and amazing, and I feel like such a great representation of bisexuality at like a high level for people to appreciate. And the thing that makes it so great, other than the fact that she's like a fantastic performer and hits everything so perfectly and
incredible
hilarious,
promos.
But she owns it. It's a very clear that this is like her baby, right? And having the whole dynamic leading up to Double or Nothing and the ending with Mina, and it was an amazing match. And she's doing a lot for what people think of when they think about sexuality in general, I would say, in pro wrestling stories. Because there are quite a few people, not everybody, but I've sort of talked about how pro wrestling fans are often able to write off some types of wrestling as, yeah, that's for you and it's not necessarily for me, and that's okay. But when it comes to like storylines and story beats, they can be kind of weird about it. Bromance is one of those ones because it's for the ladies that the audience doesn't love, right? But the cool thing about Timeless Toni Storm is that the bisexuality is a part of her character, but not the only thing about her character. There is so much more to the depth and interest of the character than just her sexuality, but it is still there.
And it's prominent, I would say, as well. Like, one thing I like is just a little throw, and she'll be cutting this amazing promo for like an upcoming tag team match, and she'll be like, this clearly non-sexual partnership between her and I, and we're going to win this match. Like, just throwing these little things in here, right? Or actually, I just want to say as well, for people who might not be familiar, is Toni Storm, what kind of sets her apart, I think, is she has kind of like this old Hollywood aesthetic and gimmick, and is like always like pictured in black and white. Everyone else is in color, and she has these things like I've heard it modeled after like All About Eve specifically, which incredible movie. And if you're going to model a wrestler after an old movie, then I think that's a good one to pick. But
it's beautiful. Yeah, she's from New Zealand, but has this beautiful like transatlantic accent, and it's always the sharp turn of the head and the lipstick, and the perfect bob blonde.
You did that
cut.
incredibly, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I love her very much. I've never seen her wrestle, but I have seen all of her social media work and promos.
I feel like 50% of our Instagram DMs are me sending clips of Toni Storm to Shanni.
Yes, and if it wasn't you, it was 2 or 3 other people. Everyone's just like, you're gonna like this, right? And I'm like, yes, I will.
Yeah.
And I think honestly that probably does connect with like you said, it's the fully realized character. She owns her sexuality, but it's for her, which is so important, especially with like bisexual and sapphic characters and people, is it's so often played as for the straight male gaze, and this is not that at all, which I love. It's
for us.
Delightful. It's for me. Yes, us, me.
Yeah, and then,
okay, maybe for you specifically.
Me specifically. Thank you, Toni Storm.
Yeah, and then the cheekiness of the in-ring kisses, right? It's acknowledging that we've seen this staged before as a kind of gross voyeuristic thing. So it's acknowledging that has happened in the past and still in some ways continues to happen, but this is not that. Right? So, it's a hard line to walk when you're given, maybe if you're lucky, 20 minutes a week if you get a match.
But that's I think, again, the line between like sort of agency with it, right? As opposed to it's not the writers coming up with that. Like, that is something that you can tell that is kind of like, it's her baby. Like, this character is hers, and like she embodies it, and it does not seem to be pulled along unwilling in any of this.
No, it's great.
It's just like, I'm going to go out there, have some fun, maybe kiss a girl or two. It'll be a great time.
Oh, it's the intensity. It's the like self-seriousness of the character too just really adds that extra camp dimension that I can't get enough of.
Because she's so self-important, right? She's so self-aggrandizing.
Yes.
That, like, she's the best in the world, and she knows, and she will tell you that she's the best in the world.
Yes. Yeah.
And one of the ways I think that I've also seen, though, please don't quote me and ask me to name a specific wrestler who's done this, but because they might not have done it intentionally if I start dropping names, the hypermasculinity that loops back around into being very, very gay is also now being kind of acknowledged, right? So where a heel who is like super uber masculine macho but ends up saying something that is kind of gay, and then the audience isn't booing because he said a gay thing, but they're booing because he thinks he's so straight and macho and cool that he doesn't realize how homosexual he's sounding in that moment. And that's funny because a dumb heel is a funny, delightful thing.
No, we love a dumb heel, and we love like the sort of the, not exactly comprehending maybe what your words are, right? Like when, back to like for people who don't watch wrestling, sort of like a Tobias in Arrested Development and all the things that he would say.
Yeah.
Or like a fatal three-way match.
Oh, yeah. The fatal four-ways here, I'm like, stop telling me that. We're in public.
Yeah.
You can't say that out loud if they don't know where we're going. Yeah.
I know it's typically a four-way, but for the context of the show, I thought it still works. Yeah.
I just spat it out.
Triple threat.
It'd be a triple threat, which is a
triple
little...
threat tag, I'm also like...
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Triple threat tag, like an Eiffel Tower-y thing, I guess,
Very
right?
much that, yeah.
I mean, there's so many ladder matches.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, frankly, the amount of times I've seen another person carry another person on their shoulders with their crotch pressed into the face.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, that's a standard move.
Yeah, that's how you powerbomb.
That's how you powerbomb. I'm like...
Sure. You sure like that powerbomb, hey? Okay, well, on that note, I think that might be a good way to wrap this. So I'll just throw it to each of you if there's anything that you want to promote, anything on your socials or anything, or just any final thoughts. So, anything of that sort?
If you are interested in any of the things that we've said here as us, Corina and Shanni, you will enjoy our drag characters and our improv shows, maybe more, because my characters are funnier than I am. So you can follow us, SNSYEG, on social media, and or subscribe to our newsletter, www.SorryNotSorry.ca should take you there.
Yes, yeah, and if you're very lucky, I hope very soon, Corina, as the artistic director, we do have a wrestling themed format, the Prairie Improv Federation I mentioned at the top, and it is delightful. That's how I kind of got my start actually really into wrestling. I started with a character called Helen from the PTA, and I've wound up with Portia King, 80s rock star. I really took on the whole ring vibe.
Nice.
It's been fun, but we hope to have a couple of those coming up soon.
Yeah, that'll be great. And so the whole bit with that is it's pro wrestling, but instead they are improv superstars having improv matches against each other on stage, but we all have our personas, but we're also improvisers, improvising as improvisers in the scenes against each other.
Very fun.
And
amazing. I have seen some of your improv work before, but I haven't seen one of those.
Yeah.
So I am looking forward to the next one. I will definitely be there.
And if you want to see me get more intense about costuming and cosplay, you can find me online at skelishan.creative on Instagram, and that's where all my author work and all my cosplay work is.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Again, I'm your host, Allison Hadley. Thanks for joining us on The Rainbow Connection, where we explore the intersections between queer culture and nerd culture. You can follow us on Instagram at RainbowConPod, and we will see you next time.